Hello and welcome to this week's review of My Hero Academia Vigilantes. This week I'm reviewing the anime episode titled B, and then we kick off this review as we always do with these reviews by talking about the positives and the headline positives. The big things I'll be discussing over the course of this video. I thought that the humour was well executed, the action was decently delivered, and I liked the way in which it was able to combine two episodes. This episode marks the grand debut of B, or as she's known around these parts, B! A joke that I'm sure won't wear out its welcome by the end of this season. Now, one of my big worries going into this series was how the humour was going to translate over from the manga. Now, whilst I'm not the biggest anime manga person, something that I have definitely noticed that anime adaptations tend to be very faithful to their source material, but even with that said, there was a part of me that was worried that the humour itself wouldn't really be able to make the full transition over. This is due in part to, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I felt the animation style looked a bit too serious, and as such I wasn't confident that it was going to be able to tell the humour. The jokes in the manga, as has been evidenced by this week's episode, can be often goofy and silly, but in a way that is unlike the main series. Like, I know that the main series can do goofy, silly jokes, I know that for the most part, the humour in the main series can be character-driven as well as being goofy, but the big issue that I had was how the jokes were going to be told, how the jokes were going to be able to be delivered in this different animation style. And I have to say is that, well, it gets it right. It really does get it right almost all the way through this episode. It tells its jokes well. From the bit that we get towards the start of the episode with Knuckle Duster breaking into Crawler's apartment and then Knuckle Duster and Pop practically hijacking the place, to the little cutaway bit we have with the squeaky voices we get midway through the first half of the episode. That stuff is done really well, and I really do dig it. I know that the humour style in programs like this isn't for everyone. I know that humour can be terribly subjective, but I like it. I like how it's been able to translate these goofier moments over. Yes, the whole thing about PopStep and Knuckle Duster hijacking Crawler's apartment isn't really a goofy thing, but you get the idea. The goofier moments we get in this episode, some of the expression shots, I think it does them well, even if at times it doesn't quite feel as though the animation style really works with it. But this week, they just went straight into, yeah, let's just do the goofy character designs as and when they're needed. And I think that stuff really does work. I like the element of it, and it is certainly beyond anything else, but really stylistic in a great way, as was the case with a little bit with the squeaky voices. Hey, let's deliver exposition and a conversation that happened a few moments ago without actually having to go straight up into showing it. Let's do it in a way that's more creative and silly, and I like that. I really do like that. And you know, not all of it is goofy stuff. Like I say, there's the moment where PopStep and Crawl are heading out to meet the eel guy, and then PopStep gets recognised, and, oh, is that your boyfriend? No, I'm not her boyfriend. And then she gets pissy because of just how quickly Crawley denied being her boyfriend. Which is a fun little character moment. I really like moments like that. Like I say, unless I've always praised with My Hero Academia more generally, I do like how a lot of the humour is character-driven rather than just being silly, goofy stuff. But hey, in this series we're able to do both, and I think it does, with this adaptation, does both of that stuff very, very well. And the whole big solution with dealing with the eel kid in the episode is a joke in and of itself. Their way of defeating this slippery, slimy eel thing is to just throw flour onto it. And I do like that, because if nothing else, it ends up showing, or rather it plays into the idea of just how strange quirks are, and how superheroes of this world need to find ways around those quirks in order to defeat the villains. It isn't just a simple case of just beating them up or going a level beyond. They have to think more about the physicality, the biology, and just the physics of how these quirks work in order to get the ideal result out of this stuff. It requires them to think on their feet and use less conventional options, even if it is in this case just dumping a crap load of flour onto this guy because he's just so slick and slimy. This week's eel monster is the second slimiest things I've seen on a video this month after Randy Pitchford's appearance in the Switch 2 reveal video. I mean, I will be honest, I totally forgot how they dealt with this villain in the manga, so seeing it now effectively to a certain degree fresh is refreshing because of just how they deal with it. Yes, I know that once again we still get Knuckle Duster beating the super villain serum out of him, But I just forgot the lead into that. I forgot that the solution to this was just throw a bunch of flour onto this slimy thing to stop it being so slimy and then just beat the crap out of it. Like I say, I like this solution because it has an element to it which feels grounded. There's a believability to it. There's a physics. There's a sense of weight to it. How do we deal with this thing? Let's just use this conventional everyday thing rather than we've brought in this special gadget designed by Tony Stark or whoever to deal with it. No, it's just regular household cooking flour, and I do like that. I do dig that, and it's the kind of thing that I do wish we'd see more of in both the series, where it isn't just going a level beyond, and training the quirk. Sometimes they have to use something that's a lot more mundane. I like stuff like that, and again, something I'd like to see more of. And it's able to do a lot of this while still being able to balance very different tones. This episode itself has a first half which, whilst there are some elements that some people might find a bit creepy, uncomfortable, it's largely done in a rather tongue-in-cheek, silly way, whereas the second half, whilst it does have some sillier, tongue-in-cheek moments, can still be a lot more serious, and it's able to combine all these things into one episode in such a way that it doesn't feel as though one side is overrunning the other. Now granted, these two halves are very different, and how they solve the problems therein is very different to one another. You know, you can't really use the silly, embarrassing way of defeating the little perv goblin on what happens in the second half of it, but you get the idea. It's able to balance these things well, as give us that lead into a far more serious second half, which is something I'll discuss shortly. I think that the action throughout this episode is solid and is supported by some very strong action animation. The first half of this episode is fun, lively, and silly for the most part. And even though it is silly, certain with how it defeats the bad guy, it still, as I mentioned previously, does it in a way which feels grounded and feels practical. I'm not going to go over it again, but using flour to defeat the slimy bad guy monster thing works great. It's a genius idea, and it shows a level of thought and creativity that I really do love. And it's the kind of thing I would like to see more of in the main series, though at this point, main series is done and dusted, so we can't really cry over spilt milk. But certainly within the Here and Now, it does make that fight sequence, even though it does ultimately go the same direction of most of the fight sequences we've had this series thus far, it still gives it that sense of weight and a bit more of a how do you solve this kind of angle to it, which I really do like and respect. And whilst I do like the action in the second half, I do wish that more could have been done with it, for two main reasons. That whole scene, and this is something I mentioned way back when I did the manga review, is one that really stuck out to me and had this shocking element to it. Because the whole idea of what happens in that second half is shocking and horrifying when you think about it. This whole thing of B using their quirk to create a whole batch of these instant villains is just horrible and nasty. Like, just imagine it, there you are minding your own business and all of a sudden your entire body rebels against you and you have no way to protect yourself or the people around you, as your body is just acting just on its own. It's lashing out, it's hurting people, and there's nothing that you can do to stop it. You are trapped within your own body and you're causing pain and suffering to those around you with no way in being able to hold it back. People are running and screaming away from you, and all you can do is watch in horror as the authorities deal with you like you're just yet another problem, like you're yet another source of evil in this world, and you're being dealt with by people that you look up to, the people that you look up to most in the world and respect, and they're looking down upon you as though you are just another threat. To you, this is the most traumatic day in your life, but to them, it's only Tuesday. It's this horrifying body horror moment which I think more could be made of it. Like I say, when I read that in the manga, whilst ultimately execution is much the same, in the manga it had an extra sense of just a horrifying element to it because it just came so far out of left field. Because this is the first time in the entire series, whether that be the main series or this one, where we're seeing regular everyday people being tricked, not even tricked, they're literally just being used by the bad guys to cause a problem, and the heroes barreling into them like they are the problem, like they are the villains themselves. The heroes aren't acting inappropriately, they are just fighting it as they see it, and it has this horrifying element to it, which, again, they adapt it one for one, but there was something about the way it was presented in the manga which isn't here, and I think that comes down to the art style, because I think that in the moments that we see, it wasn't quite as brutal or as creepy or as scary. This is not to say as though the manga does some creepy Frank Henenlotter fucking video drone body horror stuff, but even still, there was something about it which just had a sense of just dread and terror to it, which just isn't here. It's within the woodwork, it's within the margins, but I would be shocked if people took this quite to the same level as I did it when I first read it the first way around. And sure, if they're not going to lead into that darkness, that horrifying just creepiness of it, then I still think that they needed more of the spectacle of seeing these heroes in their prime doing their thing. I think that alone could have been made into more of a moment. We, again, do get that. We get it in short snaps with those bits that look like just they've animated comic book panels, but there's something missing from it. And on the one hand, there's something about the animation that lacks detail, and on the other side of it, it just the comic book nature of that, it feels like a bit too much. Like, I think that that whole action sequence is good in and of itself. Yes, I think it could have been darker and creepier and just more horrifying, but it doesn't overstay its welcome. It doesn't overstay its welcome visually in terms of pacing or spacing, because let's be honest, beyond anything else, this is not the story of the heroes, this is not their moment, though there's still a part of me that thinks they treated that whole action sequence in a way which is a bit too heroic, bearing in mind what's really happening in that scene. It's people being forced against their will to not even become villains, just become victims of their body rebelling against them in a way which just feels really uncomfortable and nasty, but yet still you have the triumphant music in the background and all the, oh wow, look, the guys are doing it again, oh look, there's Iwasawa, and I got this nasty feeling, and I see it with a lot of the reaction videos and such, and people treating this like a, yeah, let's go, action time, boys, kind of thing, when really, that's not what the scene should be. This should be a thing of, oh crap, these people are just minding their own business, and maybe this is another sign that you should have edited and changed the story slightly just to underline just what a fucking nightmarish thing this is. But hey ho, I'm getting too lost within this moment, but we'll discuss these things, I suppose, as we go forward into the season-long review. This, of course, as I mentioned earlier on, is the episode that brings B into the series, and I think that their character is introduced in this episode well. I think that, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, dear listener, it's a bit bloody obvious that she was going to become a major character, even beyond the fact that she features in the intro and the outro, mostly due to the fact that her friends just look so generic. Look, I got some problems with how some of the animation went and character design went in this episode. Oh boy, but we'll get onto that shortly. But you know, I do like the way in which she's introduced all the same. She's introduced in a way which is almost unassuming. Yes, she has the very deliberate, this is a main character, keep an eye on them kind of design, but even still, the way in which they're brought in is effective. When we first see her, to be fair, she's just in the background in that shop as Crawler and PopStep are walking along. It's in a scene where Crawler and PopStep are talking along, with Crawler kind of thinking that PopStep's being a little bit too overprotective of herself and being overprotective of her appearance and her reputation, because she's acting like she's going to get spotted and there's going to be this big scandal online, even though she isn't really a major name. Of course, at this time in the story, it's not really clear as to how popular she is in the whole social media space, but from what we can imply, even just at this moment, she's a modestly popular wannabe influencer. Like, in context, it feels like someone that has like 10 to 25,000 subscribers on YouTube being worried they're going to get noticed when they're out and about, when they really aren't. Like, maybe there was someone like, oh hey, you're the person that does that thing, but they're really not. They're really not going to get noticed, but hey ho, it plays into ego a bit. It creates a fun little moment. So when the character we know is B comes into it, we just think, oh, it's proving PopStep right. It's proving, yes, people still recognise it and people still know who she is, and fine, that's okay, that's fine. And I think the effectiveness of her just bringing her in such an unassuming way works. Just with the pacing, I think this is a problem within the manga itself. I think the pacing of going from, oh, they're just a regular, normal person with a cool character design to, oh, they are definitely a major character, I think is a bit too quick, because it ain't too long after we're introduced to them, it becomes very clear as to why she's a relevant character, because her eye is filled with bees! Bees that are filled with the drugs! Well, I'm really looking forward to talking about this character as the series goes along, because Oh boy, I got things to talk about with this character. But beyond that, because I'll be honest with you, when I was writing out this review, I very nearly gave away some major plot spoilers for elements of their character until I realised, oh yeah, that hasn't happened in this episode, so I can't talk about it. Anyway, to go back to the substance of the episode itself, like I say, the way in which she's introduced in a way which seems unassuming at first, but then as the episode goes on, it becomes clear she's a major character. I just maybe wish that was paced out a little bit better, but still, very well done, regardless of what form it's in. And I do have to say is I like the way in which this episode was able to combine two episodes. It does it far and away better than the previous episode did, I have to say. The previous one, the big issue that I had was it felt as though the big emotional crescendo moment happened way too early in the episode. The big thing for that episode was with Crawler saving PopStep, and with him saving PopStep, that to me is the equivalent of this hero speech that Midoriya gets in the main series. That's the moment that just marks the point where this character's life is going to change forever. This is the moment where they begin their journey, where they go from just average nobody to going on a journey that they hope will make them into a great hero, in this case a great vigilante. And in the episode itself, one, I don't think it's very well animated or put together for what it is. I think the manga did it better, but even still, beyond anything else, it does that epic character moment midway through the episode. And then that means the big crescendo ending moment of the episode is just people getting Crawler's name wrong, which I really don't think is as effective way of ending the episode than had Crawler got his first win against a villain. And some people may argue, some people may debate it, but that's my feelings on it. With this week's episode, we don't have that problem because we have this nice gradual amping up of the tension as the reality of this instant villain stuff starts to become a lot more apparent. Yes, I am still of the mind I would rather that each episode was an episode in the anime. Yes, there would need to be some filler here and there to pad it all out, but even still, with an episode like this, I think it does it well because it ends up feeling more like a logical development and growth of the episode. You can see these elements going from one half to the other and feeling like they're being developed upon and built upon, and you have this gradual ratcheting up of the tension. You start off with a first half, which, whilst it does set up for what's coming in the second half, the episode itself gets darker. You're going from something like light and bright and kind of goofy to something a lot more serious as we get to the end of it, which I think really works well here. I think the episode itself, before we get into the review, is great for what it is. It's one of the strongest we've had thus far. But with that said, let us get into the negatives. So, as I mentioned, and as I hinted to not too long ago, I have an issue with how some of the background characters were designed. I understand that with anime and manga, or rather with anime specifically, is that you can have situations where the version that is released, simulcast and released on TV, can be an earlier cut, almost, of what will end up being in the Blu-rays and the more proper streaming stuff later on. As such, character designs and stuff can change between their initial release to maybe when they get broadcast later on. But with that said, I just have to say it. You know when PopStep is doing her big performance? She's having a big epic performance and everyone's having fun, and we get the shot to the crowd, and it's not even like a distant shot where you could forgive this. It's a right up first hand shot, and no one in the crowd has eyes. It's so fucking creepy. Like, I understand this if this is a far away shot. I understand if this is a thing like, oh crap, we run out of time, we'll fix this out by the time the Blu-ray comes out. But you have close-up shots of people that have no eyes. Not like a couple. You have like every character on the screen, with the exception of maybe one, has no eyes. And one of them had glasses on, so you could forgive that, but the rest of them didn't. This is a show that's probably been in production now for years. Again, I could understand it if it's background stuff, but when you have characters in the foreground missing body parts, that's a fucking problem. And I could forgive it was like one or two, because, oh, that's just their quirk, that's a byproduct of their quirk, but it ain't. It really isn't. It's like they forgot to just add them in. I know that they are not the focus of that scene, the focus of that moment, but they're still within the foreground and the centre of the fucking image. I mean, Okay, maybe this will be changed by in a few months' time when we get to Blu-ray release territory and DVD release territory. Maybe in a couple of weeks' time there'll be an edit of this episode which gives them their eyes back. But for God's sake, seriously, this is one of the big releases of the moment, one of this studio's big releases of the year, and no one went back to see that, oh, this character that's clearly in the foreground and all the rest of them around them have no eyes. Like, again, I could forgive it if they were just in the background, and to a certain degree I could kind of forgive it with the stuff with B and her friends, with how generic that they look, even though their animation did look a little cheap and choppy, more so than anime can be. But even still, like, okay, the big stuff when it mattered looked good, but it's a lot of the meat and potato stuff that looks really fucking ropey in a way which, oh my God, seriously, did no one fucking look at this thing a second time? And the other negative I have, and this is just an adaptation thing, in the manga, we get a look at Koichi's life. We get a look at Crawler's life at university. In this episode, it's him fantasizing about, oh, wouldn't it be great if I had friends at university? We did all student things, and we get the little montage. In the manga, we see him doing student life things, and we see him trying to bring a bunch of friends from university back to his apartment, but then his apartment looks like a creepy serial killer place, so they don't want to go up there. And the change for character, I think, from a character point of view, does work, because it shows him being more of a wistful dreamer and helps to underline the element of him. But even still, I think that not having those scenes in it at all is a detriment, because it means that the big thing with Koichi, the thing with Crawler, is the fact that he is a university student and he has a part-time job and he's trying to balance that with being a vigilante. This is an episode where we do see him doing a little bit of his part-time job, but the whole student side of his life is one that we don't see that much, to the point where it kind of feels like vigilante stuff, it's all he does. So you don't even have like the Peter Parker, Clark Kent kind of thing of them trying to balance the dual identities, because we don't really see that much in the manga as well as where that happens. We see some of him trying to do that, and I'm sure that this series will get into that, but I dislike the fact they just cut that out. But still, with that said, fucking animation problems aside, let us get into the overview. I'd say that I do like this episode, and hey, fun fact, friends, here we are. We're at the end of Volume 1, after only about 3 episodes. That's just the weight of these things, because the first volume of the the first volume of the manga was only about 5 episodes long. We've done 2 of them in 3 episodes. You get the maths on. The first episode was an adaptation of 1 episode. Episode 2, episode 3 was adaptations of 2 episodes each, so you get the maths of it. So next week, we'll be going into Volume 2! Something I kind of didn't expect to be happening so quickly, but hey, I'm enjoying what I'm seeing, animation problems aside. With that said, however, let's get into Comment Corner! It's time for Comment Corner. I can already predict the comments for the next video going to be, you shouldn't sweat the eyeless creepy people, Chris, but hey-ho, we'll do that when it comes. Here we are, it's time for Comment Corner, and we got comments from the previous video, the review of the episode titled Take Off. We kick off with Big X1, who said, I like this episode, I'm liking how this season is shaping up. Thank you, I hope that you'll stick the landing. Thus far, everything seems fine and good and dandy, but hey-ho, we'll see where it ends up going. Maybe we'll have more eyeless people, but we'll see. Next up, we got a double barrel from Jack O'Lantern. I think the Vigilantes' unique approach to pacing is something we're going to have to get used to. I think they're going for something similar to what old Cartoon Network shows did, where they take 2 short episodes, 10 to 12 minutes long, and stitch them together to make one full-length episode. It might help to think of it that way. You might want to consider reformatting your reviews to commentate that if true, where the first half of the video is laser focused on the first half of the episode, and it's effectively talking about splitting up the episodes, the reviews, into 2 halves, which respectfully I'm not going to do, because I think that at the end of the day I think that my format does work with this. I do respect the suggestion, I do like the suggestion, but I think it's just a case of, with me, just getting used to the fact this isn't going to be adapted in the way that I think it should be. I just appreciate it for what it is, and that's what I'm trying to do. And their second comment comes about how they like the intro and outro and the bumpers in between. I like that as well. They do have a flair to them. There's something I really come around to liking about the intro for this series. I really do like that. When I first saw it, I wasn't so keen on it, but by the end of it, I really do like it. And I do like the bumper that we get with the... I think it's we crawl and then we get the comeback one with PopStep. Though it does feel odd when you're watching this streaming, where it's a case of, okay, we don't really have the ad breaks, so I don't know why we're here. Or is this the people making the series telling me, right, Chris, you need to get up and stretch your legs and have some water, you've not drunk in a little while. Anyway, next comment comes from Scott TV Gamer, who says, I think Koichi didn't recognise Iwasawa because the main series mentions he's a hero that says more or less... says more on the download and doesn't like the media attention. Not even Izuku, the walking encyclopedia, recognised him right away. Also, the source of the Vigilantes Season 1 having 13 episodes originally came from a leaker. Official sources confirm this to be true. The same leaker recently said that the second is happening, though it's unclear if this is a Season 2 or part of a Season 1 that will air at a dated date, likely after My Hero Academia season. Thank you for your comment. There has been some speculation as to exactly the format that Vigilantes, the anime series, is going to take on. I think it was in the previous video where someone suggested that maybe it's going to go up to the end of the Sky Egg arc, or at least to the start of it, and I think that's a bit much. From everything we've seen in the trailers, it feels as though it's going to adapt the first 4 volumes, and it would feel very strange to do a 13-episode run and then do another 13-episode run later this year. I think the plan with Vigilantes is they're going to, for the sake of timing, if nothing else, make this My Hero Academia 2. At least until My Hero Academia 2 comes along. They want something that's going to hold the fort and keep the series fresh in people's minds so that eventually, when the new series kicks off, if it ever does, they have something in the meantime to get it off. You know, they don't want a situation like with Dragon Ball where it's off air for nearly a decade and then just hoping that the next series will have the legs behind it to sustain itself. But we'll see. Maybe there'll be a second half of the series. I think it's just something that's been lost in translation. You know, because we know that with Vigilantes and with My Hero Academia, the main series, there's always like a week off midway through it, so that might be where the confusion as to how stuff has been split up comes along. I don't know, but we'll soon see. Let me know what you thought about this episode down in the comment section down below. I understand this video has gone on for quite a bit, but in any case, I hope you enjoyed the review, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. Let me know what you thought about it in the comment section down below, and you will be read out in a future video. Thank you all for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye!
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!